This is InvestorIdeas.com at the GLOBE 2016 Conference in Vancouver, a leadership summit for sustainable business. In this panel, Disruptive Innovation and Technology, what will it really take to move the needle on climate? You'll hear insight from global thought leaders, including Deb Frodl, Global Executive Director at Ecomagination at GE.
I'm going to introduce the panelists all together now, and we do have lunches and other things on the other end of this, so I'm going to be the efficient keeping us to time, and I'm going to spare us the long bios and introductions. So on the stage with me today is the Honourable Jim Carr, Minister of Natural Resources, and the MP for Winnipeg Centre. South Centre, excuse me. Minister Carr is a friend of GLOBE. It's his first GLOBE, but he's been with the Business Council of Manitoba for many years and worked to create a Canadian energy strategy. So you'll be interested in his remarks. We're here to talk about disruptive innovation. And what could be more disruptive than the first panel cutting 20 minutes into our session? But the other thing that's going to be exciting is we have Deb Frodl, who's the Global Executive Director of Ecomagination for GE. She's at the cutting edge of what's happening at GE and in disruptive changes from inside the company. We've got Paul Bunje, who's Senior Scientist, Energy and Environment with the XPRIZE. And the XPRIZE does some interesting things, both in terms of how they motivate people to find disruptive innovations and the policy tools that they use, and he's got something interesting to tell us this morning. And then Lierop, who's President and CEO of Chrysalix Energy Venture Capital, and he'll tell you about all kinds of things that he's doing to fund and draw out disruptive change agents in the clean tech space. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome Minister Carr to the stage.
Thanks, Velma. I'm so glad the theme is disruption. You may think that she's moderating this panel, and she is, but she's also been a very important player on the Canadian energy scene and environment for a long, long time. And I remember from 2009, when the President of the United States came to Canada on his first foreign mission and invited Prime Minister Harper to engage in a North American energy dialogue. And a few of us scratched our heads and said, well, what's the Canadian energy strategy? And there wasn't one. So we called a meeting, and where do you call meetings? The corner of Portage and Main and Winnipeg, of course, and everybody showed up. The 9 CEOs of the major think tanks came to talk about the same thing at the same time, and that was how to frame a Canadian energy strategy. That was accomplished. Velma was the glue to that strategy, and now fast forward 6 years, and the Council of the Federation has written a document that's very powerful and very important, and the Canadian government at long last has developed an interest in the Canadian energy strategy. And what I want to say to my friend Chris Henderson, who is responsible for all of this, is that he only disrupted my life 30 years ago when we met at a Commonwealth Conference for Young Leaders. Let me tell you that even 30 years ago, neither Chris nor I was young. But here we are together on the same stage. And then the next date that's important for me is November the 4th, when we were sworn into cabinet. And the second most emotional moment was when Jody Wilson-Raybould was sworn in as Canada's Minister of Justice and Attorney General. In the early 1980s, her father, Bill Wilson, was appearing in front of Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau to talk about Indigenous rights in the context of Canadian constitutional reform. And Bill Wilson said in the course of his conversation with the Prime Minister that his 2 daughters were in the audience, and one of them wanted to be a lawyer. And there was all kinds of snickering in the background. Sure, a 2-year-old Indigenous woman wants to be a lawyer. Well, on November the 4th, she became Canada's Minister of Justice. And what had changed in those 30 years? The whole world.
Before we begin, I thought it would be helpful just to give everybody a little bit of a progress report on Ecomagination. Okay, perfect. On Ecomagination, we launched the program 10 years ago in 2005. And from the beginning, it was always more than a typical corporate sustainability program only focused on internal operations. It was and still is part of GE's core strategy, innovation, except cleaner innovation. And today, Ecomagination has technology solutions that span the entire GE portfolio. We have some of the world's most efficient locomotives, aircraft engines, gas turbines, wind turbines, LED lighting, software, and beyond. We are helping to transform industry and customer outcomes, driving much greater efficiency, economics, and environmental performance at a scale that's unique to GE. Ecomagination has been an incredible success story. Over the last decade, we have exceeded our public commitments. Today, we have invested over $17 billion of cleaner technology R&D, well on our way to $25 billion by 2020. And that has returned us over $232 billion of GE revenues, a real proof point that our customers value these solutions in their operations today. We also have reduced GE's environmental footprint. We've reduced greenhouse gas emissions by 31%, freshwater use by 42%, and we're not stopping there. We're going to incrementally reduce another 20% by 2020. So we're proud of our results, but we are truly just getting started. So let's talk about energy. The global energy transformation has begun. Today, where a power plant is being built somewhere in the world, it is as likely to be renewable as it is fossil fuel or nuclear. Renewable energy today accounts for 50% of the global electricity capacity additions. It is now the second largest source of electricity generation next to coal, and it is rising quickly. There's never going to be a trade-off between economics and the environment for our customers. And as we look forward, there are three focus areas for the Ecomagination strategy as we look to the global energy transformation. New business models, innovation, and partnerships. Let's talk about each one of these individually. New business models are needed to be adopted and deployed in order to meet the challenges of today as well as harness the opportunities. Today, customers are asking for integrated solutions that help them maximize economics and environmental performance, as well as they are looking for OpEx solutions versus CapEx solutions, and we are here to develop new ways to deliver those energy solutions for our customers. We are really excited at GE. We recently launched a brand new business, a startup in GE called Current. And it's a first of its kind energy company where we are bringing together Ecomagination technologies like intelligent LEDs, solar, storage, on-site power, EV charging, all wrapped with a digital and financial capability to help our customers reduce their energy costs by 10 to 20%. New business models, innovative approaches are exactly what we will be focusing on to help our customers be most successful. So cleaner technology innovation is always going to be a primary focus for Ecomagination. And at GE, the $25 billion that we have committed for Ecomagination through 2020 is going to be focused in areas like gas development, next generation renewables, integrated energy systems, alternative fuel transportation, industrial water reuse, and of course software.
To be moving into. So at XPRIZE, what we're looking to do is quite candidly change the world by inviting absolutely anybody to create a breakthrough solution that can get us not a little bit better, not twice better, but at least 10x, 100x better on various challenges. So what we do is, and it's a pretty simple process, right? Identify the world's grand challenges, climate change is sort of an obvious one, and then put a target on the back of that challenge and invite anyone in the world to meet that target, to solve that breakthrough. If you do, you win money. Millions and millions of dollars of it. It's a prize. As simple as you might think, but it's got some really remarkable features to how this works. I'll give you an example. Since we're talking about disruptive innovation for climate change, we recently launched our first prize directly targeting climate change. That's the NRG COSIA Carbon XPRIZE, which is literally meant to change the way we think about carbon, but not just the way we think about it in our heads, in our hearts, etc., but the way markets think about carbon. So there are 3 principles that drove that. Number 1, carbon dioxide drives climate change. Again, literally design thinking 101. Be as simple as you can.
You are a scientist, Adam.
I am a scientist. And most of the carbon dioxide emissions, the largest share of that comes from the generation of electricity, coal and natural gas primarily around the world. That's principle 1. Number 2, carbon is a building block for most of the things we care about in life. There's absolutely no reason we should think of carbon dioxide just as a waste product, something that just goes into the atmosphere and causes climate change. Let's rethink, reimagine what carbon dioxide can do. And number 3, we can turn markets onto this. It's incredibly important, of course, that we have governments and prices on carbon, regulatory structures and the like, but we really, in order to get to scale, to really change the way the world deals with carbon dioxide and ultimately climate change, we need market forces, just as Deb, you were saying, to get immediately behind this. So the way we structured the NRG COSIA Carbon XPRIZE is thus. We said that for any team that can convert the most carbon dioxide coming straight out of a power plant, a coal or a natural gas-fired power plant, turn as much of that CO2 into 1 or more products that have the highest net value that you can sell into marketplace, wins. There could be a couple of winners because you can compete in a coal track or a natural gas track. They're going to share in $20 million to bring this home. So that's cool, right? So it's also fun to win money. It's fun to give out big checks too, candidly. That's always exciting. But there's actually a secret trick in the way these prize competitions work. Well, it's not really that secret, and it's not really a trick, but it's really where the power comes in. And that's to say that those teams that take home the cash may win a lot of money, but that's not really the prize. And in fact, it's all of the teams and partners that are a part of this competition that are taking home the real prize, which is a market in the future. What we like to say is that when we award a prize, that's when the real change begins. The day the prize is awarded is when the markets take over. And I'll give you an example of how this works. This is really kind of fun. It's a leveraging effect. Some of you may remember the first XPRIZE, which was about 12 years ago for private spaceflight, the Ansari XPRIZE that put Spaceship One into orbit. It has now become Virgin Galactic. That prize was worth $10 million. But the teams trying to win that, if you added up all the money they spent trying to win the prize, they spent well over $100 million just trying to win that $10 million, right? So we got a 10x leverage just in that competition. And we expect to see that in every prize competition, every one we've analyzed, which means I expect by 2020, teams will invest well over $200 million just trying to win this Carbon XPRIZE. So that's a leverage on R&D for a breakthrough carbon utilization technology that is unbelievable. But there's another multiple, there's another order of magnitude, and that's what the market is worth. And again, we have the most evidence from the Ansari XPRIZE. Private spaceflight was basically a non-existent industry in 2004 when we awarded this. There was a little bit of work on it, a little bit of investment, but you didn't have the SpaceX's of the world or Orbital or Blue Origin out there doing what they're doing now. Now we're up to, from basically no industry, almost a $3 billion a year industry 10 years later. That's what we want to see with carbon utilization. It's the exact same sort of thing. How do we use technology as a driver of new markets to disrupt those markets and say, we can make money. We literally can make money by either pulling carbon dioxide out of the air or directly out of those power plants that are driving climate change and get the market to help do that. One last piece of that I want to sort of mention, and this is real credit to our partners and how this works. There's some friends from COSIA, Canada's Oil Sands Innovation Alliance, which is one of our sponsors in the audience. Please chat with them as well about this. In order to compete in an XPRIZE, you actually need to demonstrate something. This is not an ideas competition. This is a prove-it competition. And so to do that, we create a level playing field. And in this prize, for example, there are actually going to be 2 test centers. Test and commercialization centers, one that's already been announced, built in Wyoming. You can actually go to the wyomingitc.org website, literally next to a coal-fired power plant, where teams will go and have most of a year to actually demonstrate their technology on us. That's a pretty remarkable opportunity not only to demonstrate these. The other natural gas-fired one will actually be here in Canada, in Alberta, and we're not quite ready yet to announce it, but that is going to be, those 2 things are going to ultimately be one of the biggest pieces of driving this market transformation. Because you can imagine, if you want, everyone here who's involved in either investment or some other aspect of clean tech knows that just being able to demonstrate and test out these types of technologies itself is one of the biggest barriers to getting through this. How do you get from the lab to scale? So by literally building these commercialization centers, we expect that for years to come, we're going to be transforming how it is that those local economies become potentially clusters of innovation around particularly carbon dioxide mitigation, but also how new business models can flow from that and really drive novel applications in fields far afield from carbon utilization, because there'll be these legacy aggregators of brilliance and opportunity that we expect will really help drive these kind of disruptive breakthroughs we want to see.
Necessary. Let me tell you a little story. When Buzz Aldrin, the second man on the moon in 1969, was interviewed last year, they asked him, Buzz, when you stepped off the moon almost 40 years ago, what do you think the world would look like by 2050? And his answer was, of course, we expected to have colonies on Mars by now. And instead we got Facebook and Twitter. What we are working on here at the podium, and in particular also us on Chrysalix, is industrial innovations that matter, capitalizing on the fourth industrial revolution of today, after the electronics and IT and automotive production revolution of the 1900s and early 2000s. This fourth industrial revolution is characterized by the fusion of technologies that are blurring the lines between physical, digital, and biological spheres. The World Economic Forum calls it cyber-physical technologies. They are physical-based from chemistry, physics, biology, but enabled by software and connectivity that are increasing performance and bringing costs down exponentially. And relevant technologies include robotics, autonomous driving, virtual reality, advanced materials, 3D printing, sensors, networks, synthetic biology, nanotechnology, quantum computing. Allow me to give you a few examples. General Fusion here in Vancouver, a Chrysalix portfolio company, well on its way to produce cheap and safe fusion energy, with no more radiation than the average academic hospital, and hardly any rest nuclear waste. Is truly the holy grail of clean energy. But it wasn't possible between 1916 and 1982, when the US military and Los Alamos was working on it. They had to stop things in 1982 because the science was not there, and it was not until about 10 years ago when the founders of General Fusion realized that breakthrough in plasma science and breakthrough in computer science enabled them to do what Los Alamos and US military couldn't do. Another example, MindSense, also a company we are working on at Chrysalix. It's building the mine of the future. It's bringing sensors and artificial intelligence to the actual operation equipment, so that when the operator takes a big scoop of rock, in real time he gets a read whether that rock is worthwhile to be hauled up from the mine and then sent down the road for crushing and for the further processing, or if he or she simply lays it aside. This solves a tremendous problem in the mining industry, and it's called waste rock. It reduces the shipment of waste rock by more than 50%, increasing enormous productivity, reducing enormous amounts of diesel oil, and for every barrel of oil you use, you probably use multiple barrels of water. So it is very good for the environment. Other examples include nanosteel we're working on, steel 3D printing, D-Wave, Tesla, E-bomb, carbon 3D, which grows parts instead of building them up layer by layer, and many others. And believe it or not, many of these companies are here in Vancouver. This type of new industrial evolution has an enormous impact on virtually all industries, from resource and energy exploration and utilization to the next generation manufacturing and distribution, impacting these existing automation manufacturing companies, the chemical industry, the electric power industries, and also many ways in which we consume things, call it smart living. It will have an enormous impact on utilities, the automotive industry, construction, and even aerospace. And when you sum this up like this, it is no surprise that McKinsey calls this the biggest investment opportunity in our lifetime. That is what this fourth industrial innovation revolution is all about. a lot has already been done, and the rapidly decreasing cost of solar, wind and energy that talked about that make investment in renewables much cheaper than the grid in many places in the world already. But we need more. Why? Let me share you a funny tweet from Michael Liebrecht of Bloomberg New Energy Finance a few weeks ago. He claims that it would take the UK an extra 3 terawatt of power to switch all the 35 million cars and all the 60 million households in the UK to electricity, which they would need to meet their COP21 targets. That is the equivalent of building hundreds of thousands more windmills. Virtually impossible. We need more. Google actually tried it. And in November 2014 they said, we cannot power all our server parks with just wind and solar. And then last week Bloomberg forecasted that they currently foresee the electric vehicle to take off by 2022. At that moment in time, they will replace 2 billion barrels of oil per day. And electric vehicles will, according to Bloomberg, grow to a 35% market share worldwide by 2014, at that moment taking more than 13 barrels of oil a day out of the market. Now, this may be bad news for the oil industry, but we should also think about what this means for many countries in trying to achieve their COP21 targets if by 2040, according to Bloomberg, the internal combustion engine is still the dominant source for automotive. We really need new technologies to scatter the forecast in the same way as the forecast for solar and wind and energy storage have been ripped apart over and over again in the past 10 years. We need to go faster. So we need more breakthrough innovations, fusion, wave power, something totally new. And the good news is that there are many very bright people who will be involved, as Paul just indicated. And it is also, of course, very encouraging to see that many more countries are stepping up to the plate to help finance this.